Hello, everyone. This is Linda Belzil-Brisson. Welcome back. I'm really, really excited to have Dr. Sharon Ufberg with us today. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So Sharon is actually a freelance journalist and a radio host. She is also a published writer, and she often contributes to the Huffington Post and Huff Post Live. Dr. Ufberg is also the co-founder of a personal growth and wellness company called Borrowed Wisdom and Elevate Gen Y. And she's also a highly respected integrative health practitioner, along with a number of other things. She's an absolutely fascinating individual. And I think, just in order to help people understand who you are and what you do a little more, Sharon, if you just want to share a bit more about yourself.
Sure. Thank you. I think one of the wonderful things about women, especially as we age, we get to reimagine ourselves many times. So, you start with one thing and then you get to roll and try other things. And I feel like this year will approach 60, actually, I'm very proud to say. I'm looking forward to having a whole bunch of new things on that list, so when we meet again in a few years, we'll have more things to add. But I would say that I really started my career as a chiropractor, an integrative wellness practitioner. It was something I enjoyed very much. My dad was a chiropractor. My son's a chiropractor. Kind of alternative healing was always part of who I was and what I wanted to be. And my story really around this whole getting a life you love and committing fully to who you are, very much took a twist when I was in my mid-40s. So I would say about 15 years ago, I started young. I had, married for almost 20 years at that point. I had 3 kids who had grown. I had this long-standing private practice, and it looked quite rosy from the outside, good resources, happy family. But on the inside, I had an enormous amount of yearning for a bigger purpose. I felt like I wasn't living my dream life, so to speak. I felt that I had outgrown what was a good marriage. I had really outgrown that. And I was really ready and needed to look outside of that for my next chapter. And also in my practice, I felt that I had really hit a wall in terms of what I was giving to the universe. And it was very complicated, 15 years ago. Fortunately, now we, have this resource where people can, tune in and listen to you and hear, and hear personal growth experts and have lots of options of help people to hold their hand and walk them through a process, But 15 years ago, it wasn't like that. And I had to really search and look for a mentor and study and read and go through a lot of trial and error, quite frankly, to come up with what now I use as a very strategic step-by-step approach to all aspects of my life. So, in that regard, it really starts with all the manifestation principles, beginning with clearing and releasing. How do you break down the barriers, the blocks of what it is that's stopping you from being exactly who you want to be or achieving what you want to achieve? How do you really make the space to manifest what you want? And so, I started there. It still always starts there. And then I went through a process of learning how to really create a mental blueprint for my life and how to visualize my future and how to kind of vibrate at the frequency of what I desired most. And 15 years ago, the brain retraining work that is now so prevalent today was very woo-woo crazy back then. People were like, what are you doing? But it was extremely exciting to learn ways to open up new neural pathways, to have a new story and to recreate that in your life. And then with all of these theories and practices, it always boils down to taking action. And for me, my action was leaving quite a comfy life in Northern California and moving by myself to New York City. I couldn't take my private patients with me, so obviously I had no more practice. I didn't have a marriage. My kids were grown, and I basically left with very little resources, but with this huge commitment to what I believed in, and this glorious opportunity to discover my own potential. And so I slept on a friend's couch. I pounded the pavement. And, you know, the good news is, Linda, like, you know, I got this amazing new career opportunity. You know, I ended up being invited into a very impressive integrative center for health and healing on Fifth Avenue. It was really a wonderful place with lots of interesting doctors. And it was something, I wasn't from New York City. It was like, wow, I really did this. You know, it was extremely exciting and very, very empowering to see that I could commit fully to myself and believe in myself. Now, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't leave California as an integrative doctor and go to New York and become an electrician. You know, I mean, I used some of my skill set, but it was a very different role and it had a very different portfolio. And so I really felt that it was one of those things where I felt incredibly excited and empowered by this new skill set. Yet I wanted more. You know, I'm a romantic. I wanted love and romance. I wanted a partner that I could travel with. I wanted to be with someone that felt aligned with who I had become. Now, I was still, like, I was in my late 40s, you know. I felt like I had a lot of life still to live. And yet I was confronted again with all my limiting beliefs about what kind of man would be out there available for me. I was very independent, rebellious woman. You know?
Even at 45, or like in
yes, right. Right. In my mid 40s, I'd lived, you know, a big life already. And how was I going to find a partner that was free spirited and impulsive and aligned to this kind of lifestyle that I was really looking for in this huge millions of people in New York City, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went back I went back and went step by step again through the same process of clearing and releasing those limiting beliefs and looking at how to make a blueprint for that kind of life I wanted to live. And, you know, step by step through the process and expressing to the universe everything I wanted, hoped, and dreamed, you know, for. So, you know, kind of to make the story, to end the story, you know, I'm about to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary. I did find a partner that really resonated with the life I wanted. I brought my New York City husband back to Northern California after a couple of years. And we lived in the beautiful wine country of Napa Valley. And now we live just blocks from the ocean in Southern California. And I've continued really to use the same process. I used it when I opened Borrowed Wisdom, when I started this business with my daughter, who people will get to meet with you. And you know, she's an Ivy League lawyer and I a long-standing doctor. And together, you know, we joined forces and used the same process again to decide to, you know, have a business where we could really help other people. We feel very strongly that we're no different than anybody else. And that, so the approach that we use to, you know, explore all of our opportunities in life can really be used by anybody, you know. So I feel like my life is, you know, is still, there's still so much more to live. You know, now I do a lot of travel writing. I never thought of myself as a travel writer before. Now I'm traveling the world writing about stories, about experiences, about people making a difference. I don't know what next year will be.
I mean, I love this reinvention, this constant reinvention. So if I could just maybe take you back to sort of when you were, because I know that a lot of people who are listening are probably, you know, in that bracket of, you know, age. You know, some of them could very well be struggling with, you know, what they're becoming versus, you know, what they used to be. So if you had any sort of tips, or if you could just share sort of your process of going from, first of all, giving yourself, how did you give yourself permission? Because I find that a lot of people actually don't give themselves permission to, first of all, be honest enough with themselves to say, this is what I really want. And second of all, to actually go and get it. So if maybe you can talk about that for a second.
Well, I mean, I think that what I've found is there's really 3 categories of why people don't succeed at anything, whether it's making that decision to move forward, starting something new, changing their life story in some way. And I would say they fall into these three categories. The first is that people just are so filled with fear, anxiety, self-doubt, lack of confidence, lack of trust in themselves, that they just never get started. They never leave an unhappy marriage. They never leave a unfulfilling work job. They, never move to the country, even though they hate living in the city, whatever it is, the circumstance it is. And part of it is that they're so crippled by their limiting beliefs of what is possible for them. So the first thing I would say is that people, in order to give themselves permission to move forward, first they have to recognize that they're not so unique, that everybody has fears, everybody feels anxious, everybody has worried. Life is not like a straight up trajectory. There's always bumps in the road. And that kind of leads to like the second person. The second person gets started, maybe begins to talk a little bit about it, maybe expresses some interest in a different career. But then the minute they hit a roadblock, the minute they don't get the new job, or they have some big bump in the road, or a door slams shut, or somebody tells them they can't do something, they see it as a failure and they immediately retreat back into their old safe space. In order to be successful and to take risk, you have to have some resilience. You have to have some resilience to the ups and downs of life. And you also have to have some dogged determination. You have to decide that staying where you are is worse than the risk of moving forward. And when you hit that tipping point, you do it. And I would say the third, and this is very, very essential piece, is that people don't arrange enough proximity to either a mentor, a coach, a community of people that loves and supports them. So I think that would be the greatest tip that I would give to someone who is looking to bravely try something new or engage in something new in their life story. Surround yourself with people that love and support you, or a coach, or a mentor, or someone who's going to teach you something, or hold your hand and just say, I believe in you.
Yes.
It's one of the things I find the most joyous in the work that I do now, is that people need to know someone's got their back. Yes. Someone, no matter how crazy your dream is.
Yeah.
You decide you want to raise goats out in the country, and you normally have been like a software engineer in, the middle of downtown San Francisco. Why not? Go for it. It's your life, right? Yeah. So you need people around you that don't say you're crazy, or that can never happen, or you'll never do that. You want to stay away from those people and surround yourself with people that dream big, that believe in people stepping out in the world.
And did you, when you moved out of your sort of your past life, we'll call it, did you feel like you had to recreate, like find a new group of people to support you, or were the people that you already had in your life, were they mostly supportive of what you were doing?
I think it was a little of both. Okay. I think there was a big chunk of people that were not supportive, that were terrified by the thought that I would step so far out of what was the norm. But I did have some close friends and family members that did support me, that did believe in me. And then, of course, I naturally gravitated to all people that were like me. When I went to New York, and I had this whole new world to meet people, and I gravitated to friends and colleagues and people that were doing interesting things, that were learning interesting things, that were creating new careers. So it became very easy when I stepped out of my past community to seek a new community of people that were much more aligned with who I had become than who I was before. Yeah.
I love the story of absolute transformation, because it's true. If we believe that it's possible, it is possible. But there's a...
And it's, I think that we take ourselves with us. It wasn't like I had a life before I was some very timid, shy person, and then I became this huge extrovert. I was always very extroverted and very involved in life and doing lots of different interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was ready to do lots of new, different, interesting things. But so we still take our inherent personality with us. You know, if we're introverted or if we're extrovert, if we're big risk takers, or if we tend to be very anxious, you don't need to completely think that it's a transformation of who you are. It's actually getting in touch with who you are and being that fully. So I always tell people one of the greatest skills is to learn how to listen to your own inner voice, how to create opportunities to hear your own inner wisdom. It is your best advisor. No matter how many coaches, mentors, therapists you have, your own inner voice tells you the truth. And if you learn to listen to it and you haven't suppressed it, and you really create that open channel between your head and your heart, you are in, really standing in good stead. You will never go wrong listening to your own intuition. Not your fear, not your self-critic, not your old school teacher who told you would never read fast enough, but your own inner voice that says, I got this, I want this, I can do this, or I'm definitely done. It's like people don't understand, like when they figure out how to really hear that very clear yes or no, it becomes so freeing. Then you can just respond to it, and you have to get people to actually start to hear that. So if someone, you talk to someone and you say, well, have you ever thought about, living in the mountains? And someone's like, oh, no, do not like to be in the mountains. That's a real clear no. Well, it's that same thing with anything else. Some people really, when you have to get somebody to remember what it feels like to have that clarity. Yeah. Because I think often we suppress it somehow.
And if somebody has suppressed that voice because of the school teacher that told them this, or the parent, or the neighbor, or whatever, the siblings, however, it sort of
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. So what would you say has really worked for you in the past to sort of, stop listening to those voices and really start listening to your own? What's been the trick that's been most useful to you?
So for me personally, and it's something that I teach very often, is to actually take some time to hear yourself. So that requires some practice. So whether it's a particular kind of meditation, whether it's journaling and writing your thoughts, whether it's listening to beautiful chanting music in a different language, you have to open up the space, right? You have to create what I call like a safe container for you to hear your own voice. So some people are like, oh, I could never meditate. That was me. I used to say, oh, my mind's always racing. I could never meditate. But then I realized, I read this book called The Diamond Cutter, and this monk talked about how he just made space for new ideas to emerge. And I used to put like a timer on, literally like 3 minutes. If I could just sit and just wait for new ideas for 3 minutes. I wasn't trying to empty my mind. I wasn't trying to chant some, Buddhist thing. I just was trying to stay still, not look at anything else, and just wait for. I used to get, when I started and it started to happen for me, and it was so exciting that I'd push the timer to 5 and 7, and I would have a pen and paper next to my meditation seat because I would get so many ideas, and I realized, oh, that's a meditation too. I'm hearing myself. And it was so enlightening and so inspiring to realize how much was there. And so for me, it's really committing to a practice of that, whether it's, and it's different. I'm very, like I said, I'm very rebellious. So I don't do the same thing every day. I don't, sit and listen every day. Some days I have a dance party in my living room, and some days I listen to nature, and some days I read poetry, and some days I write my dreams, and some days I, do EFT tapping, and some days I chant mantras, and some days I do yoga. I have this, but I have like a big, big collection of things that are called my meditation. And I set aside time every morning for that, right? What it is, who knows on any given day, you know?
But every morning the routine exists.
Right. I've left the space open for it to be just about me, not my email, not, whatever project I'm working on, not my clients, me, just what I need that morning. And so I really like to teach a lot of those kinds of rituals, because what works for you and what works for me on any given day can be very different. Do you have a ritual that you use?
Absolutely. I actually use meditation journaling, and I don't do the same thing every day, but I do meditation journaling and something that's called priming. So just the really sort of getting energy up and choosing my energy rather than, being the receiver of sort of whatever's going on.
Yeah, you're setting your intention. It's very, very wonderful, freeing practice. People think, when you add things into your schedule that it's restrictive. It's actually totally freeing.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things that I think make a big difference. And then, it's making a commitment to opening up those places in you that you might have been hidden, or that can be very afraid to come out. When you open that door, you do feel things differently, that maybe some are painful and maybe some are really joyous, but it's like really having lots of opportunity to move through whatever comes up when you're going through this kind of inner listening. But I will say it does make your decisions come from a place of much greater clarity.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if you had to say sort of what's the difference between your way of being now versus before, what was like the sort of the biggest thing that would be like the key difference for you?
Yeah, I would say it's living with a lot more intention, having a much higher consciousness of my choices and what those choices are. I would say that real belief and knowledge of the unlimited nature that we have, and the sense that anything is possible, being able to ask for anything, be able to expect anything to happen, being open and saying yes to things in a different way than maybe I would have before. I mean, as we walk through life, I think that we try to learn from each experience, and I feel so fortunate and so grateful that my experiences have been very, very positive. Primarily positive in that I have been able to take each one as a stepping stone to help me live like more consciously, to be able to give back more to the world, to share more, and that's really that's been a real joy for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I really love about the story is that that's a real sort of sense, or a real abundance. Like it's real, abundance mentality versus scarcity, which is really, well, it certainly seems that the social mentality is kind of scarcity, and there's not enough, and I need to hold on, and I need to control. So I mean, can you sort of talk to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just recently was on another telesummit, and the woman asked me something very similar. She said, in this time of great scarcity, how are you dealing with it? It's like, what? Like it's so not in my psyche at all. I feel like, for me, when I think of the universe, I think we are living in the time of the most abundance. More people have more safety, more security, more food, more shelter, more job opportunities, more wealth, more resources. Like, we live in the most abundant time in history. Right? So, does that mean everybody can get the rent paid easily? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the opportunity.
Yes.
To live comfortably and have more choices and have more freedoms and have more, it's so abundant. And it's up here, if you feel it here and you feel it in your heart, then it is, and so, that's not to say you don't have to work hard and prepare to be lucky and do lots of things that gets you in gear and keeps you moving forward. Absolutely. You can't sit in your house with the door closed and wait for someone to knock on your door for an opportunity. However, if you open the door, my experience is that the universe is ready and waiting for you.
Yes.
And so I don't understand the scarcity mentality. I just don't. I never came from that. Fortunately, I didn't have that mentality. I always felt like, this door slammed shut. Well, it was just trying to push me more in that direction.
Right,
I had to see it that, I used to joke and say, like, I'm a spin doctor. I spin everything for it to be in the positive. Oh, well, you lost that job. Well, that's because really, if you look back and you hadn't lost that job, then your wife wouldn't have gone here and you wouldn't have moved there. And then your child wouldn't have had that. It's just like this, but we can't see it going forward. We can only see it going back.
Yes.
So when you look back and say, wow, well, if I had decided to move to Paris instead of London, then I wouldn't be sitting here with my partner now, or, like, it's always, the universe takes you on this ride. And so you have to embrace it. You can't hold yourself like, oh, somehow you're going to prevent it. It's not preventable. We're on a journey, so it's like, hop on the ride.
Yeah. How do you overcome fear?
I think by surrounding yourself with as much support, as much knowledge, as much what I would call inner security. What we learn is that there really isn't any external real security. So trying to shore yourself up with that, even if something doesn't go like you expected to or want to. What's the worst thing? If you think of what's the worst thing, it's usually not that bad, and it's in the scenario you build in your head as being much worse than than it really is. In fact, I don't personally. I'm not driven as a terribly fearful person. I like to go up at high in planes, and I like to, I take great risks. But it doesn't mean that we don't fear failure, that we don't fear loss, that we don't fear those kinds of things that are, very heartfelt, real things. And to me, it's using some of that fear as a pause to pull yourself together, to get really secure in your own who you are, using that as a way to say, okay, well, maybe I'm feeling afraid because I'm not quite ready. I need to get myself more organized. I have to think about this in a different way. I have to collect more information, or I have to collect more love and support around me, and not see it as just like a complete stumbling block. It's just another part of who we are that we have to live with.
Yeah. Well, and this sort of, for me, triggers the thought that there's so many people that I've worked with who are really sort of stressed or anxious about, I'm not where I should have been by the age I'm at. And, I've had conversations with people who are in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, or, up to, 60s, saying the same thing. So what would what are your thoughts around sort of the timing for things in regards to, I need to have certain things done by a certain time?
I wish we could all be that. We can't all fall into whatever category we think. What timeline? I think things happen at the right time for each individual person. I think that there are things and barriers and blocks that prevent people from moving forward that they have to look at and address and try to help themselves shift. I also think it's really no different if you're 20 or you're 40 or you're 60, if you're not living authentically, if you're not living and doing a life that you feel is truly where you want to be. So I find that often those timelines have a lot to do with like how much money I have, or if I have a partner, or if I have a kid, or if I, they're things that the society has somehow directed. And I think often if we just embrace where we are at this moment, even if we feel some urgency, embrace the urgency as a stepping stone to take action. Okay, you feel like you're not getting where you are. You feel like you're not making enough money this year. You feel like you're not succeeding in your job. You feel like you haven't found the love of your life. Okay, well, then let's start taking some action to create some results. I have this mindset infographic that I'll send you, and you can send it out to your people. It's just 4 boxes, but it's I call it my manifesting mindset. It's just 4 boxes. I wish I had it here to put up. And basically, in the top left box, there's your potential. And there there's an arrow that's shooting towards action. Okay, so you have a certain amount of potential, and that leads you to take some small action. And with action, you now get results, even if they're small results. So you have potential on the top, followed by action next to it, and then below action you have results. And then with an arrow to results, you have certainty. Right? Now, when you get some results, it creates some certainty that you're doing something right, which leads you to feel like you have more potential. And then it's this spiral upward. You have more potential, so you take more action, you get more results, you have more results, you feel more certain that you got this, and then it gives you the sense of that you have more potential. And it's that upward spiral, right? That's a manifesting mindset. That's a mindset that says, I can do this. I'm going to do this one step at a time. And it works. It just does, because it sets you in motion. It leverages your progress, one thing after another. It expands your feeling of accomplishment. And we all need that. We all need that certainty. We all need that reaffirmation that what we're doing is the right step, that we're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I always say action is so important. We can read, all the books, we can do all the courses, but if it's just information, it's not going to we're not going to transformation. It's just information. Anybody can have information, but if you're not taking any action, then it's not going to go very far.
And it's scary. It can be scary. And all your action doesn't result in huge, obvious, tangible results, but something does happen. I always say, I love Mike Dooley. He's an amazing manifesting teacher. And he says, you can know your destination and you can get in your car with the most perfect GPS. But if you don't take your car out of park and put it into drive, you don't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I say all of this work is get into gear work. It's what I teach people. How do you get into gear? How do you put your car out of park and into drive? Because once you start moving, the momentum takes you.
I love that.
Whoosh, off you go.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So let's talk about what you do, how you help people now. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So Alexis, my daughter, and I, we have this company. It's called Borrowed Wisdom, and we teach people this very strategic step-by-step approach to manifesting, very similar to what I learned with a lot of trial and error in my own story. So, we teach these 5 steps. It's a very specific curriculum, and we do it around different things, around love, around, career success. I happen to love teaching people how to build their dream business, whether it's launching a new business, whether it's creating something from scratch, whether it's shifting from, going into work every day to doing a business online, whether it's going from being, a project manager in a tech company to be a yoga instructor. It's whatever people want, but it's really fun to help really integrate these manifestation principles with very practical, tactical business strategies. So that's something I particularly love to do. And so it's so joyous. First of all, I spent a lot of years having to show up in an office every day and see lots of patients, and, you know, with a schedule that required me to get up and go to work every day. And you know, now I do this work from, you know, my home, and it's very freeing, and a lot of people want that kind of life too. So I help a lot of people how to transition from, you know, kind of a more corporate kind of a life, regular 9-to-5 work, to a much more like location independent lifestyle. And so, you know, it doesn't mean you don't work a lot. It just means you work in a different way.
Yes.
I'll never forget when Alexa and I first started doing this work together. We used to say, we want to be on a beach in Hawaii, you know, doing this work or whatever. And so our first trip together as business partners, when we took our first trip to Hawaii, we were working a lot with our laptops in Hawaii. And I was like, whoa, stop, wrong intention. We want to just go on vacation in Hawaii. And we want to work at other times, but we don't want to have to be working in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what you ask for, because quickly you can get it, you know. So now we take vacations without our laptops, you know, working all the time. But it is a very freeing, you know, time where you can, you know, choose, you know, and we you know, we work with hundreds of people, and we have lots of time that we're working, but it is on our own time frame. You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's great, and you know, we offer people an opportunity to, you know, we have these very large telesummits where people get to come on and listen to speakers for free. We do that all year round. We have Wisdom Wednesdays. We also have a very large summit in the fall that we do, just like you know, where we're offering people this wonderful opportunity to hear experts and to share that. And it's really a give back to the world that is so joyous for us. It's really important that we help people get a life they love and learn how to give back to the world, because it's so important that, you know, you want something, you give first, you know, give freely.
Absolutely.
Boomerang back at you.
Yeah. What you put out in the world comes back to you. And I mean, speaking of what you put out in the world, I know that you've agreed to share a very generous gift with everybody who's listening today on building your dream business.
Yeah, so like I was saying, one of the things that we do is that we incorporate our very strategic curriculum around manifesting, and we fold it in a very kind of interesting way with all the tactical, practical skills of having to launch or grow a business. And so I'm happy to share that the webinar free for your people. At the end of that webinar, you know, I like to offer people an opportunity if they wanted to book a session with us. We do that at no cost. People can talk to us and talk about whether it's a good fit or it's the right work. We like to try to talk to as many people as we can, because that way it really spreads kind of this good work out into the world.
Absolutely. And I totally, I mean, I think that's an amazing thing to do, because a lot of people, you know, it's through the conversations, it's through that contact that you can figure out, yeah, this could really work or this couldn't work for me. But I highly encourage people to reach out if this really resonates, to reach out to you and to have.
And they really talk to me, like just like this, like we really book a call and we talk, and it's so fun to talk to people from all over the world. Like, look, you know, I love that we live in a world today that we can be here together live. You know?
Yeah. And we're in completely different time zones in very different areas. But yeah.
I stopped saying good morning. I have this habit of saying good morning. It's like, I just ate dinner. Oh, whoops.
Yeah. Right. I just put my son to bed, but that's it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I really want to acknowledge you, Sharon, for your generosity, for your courage, for everything that you're putting out in the world. I think it's fantastic. I think that, you know, if more people could realize that doing what they love could make such a difference, and you know, just having you there as the role model for all of us, I think is it's a blessing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, so thank you very much, And I'll make sure that all the information is there and the webinar is shared. And so if people want to get in touch with you, they can do that easily. So
thank you.
Thanks again. And we'll have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.